Hey everybody, welcome to another Sacred Cow Barbecue. It's Thursday, January 21st. I'm Patricia Aiken, an average host with exceptional guests. Tonight, some VIPs will be sharing. VIPs, that's very important patriots. Just giving us an update and insights from Harney County. We'll also have a report on how we get the counties back over using our county charters. And I know it's pretty hectic up there in Harney County. I have to believe out in the middle of nowhere, people can be so busy. But before I introduce my first guest, I want to give a shout out to Richard, Stu, and Buddy. I think of them as my barbecue correspondents. They do a great job forwarding important stuff, especially about the Hammond situation. So I want to say thank you, my brothers. I appreciate all you do. Later on, LaVoy Finicum will be joining us to talk about this week's developments, most notably his foster children being torn from his ranch as government retaliation. For being
LaVoy around here somewhere?
For being an excellent spokesman. We don't need him till later.
He to get in on this interview too.
And he knows I'm going to dial him in later, Brand, so we're good. So we'll have to call that segment The Empire Strikes Back. You won't want to miss Rene Powers either. Oh, I promised to dial her in now. I'll do that in a little bit. But let's get rolling. It's my pleasure to welcome Brand Thornton back to the barbecue. We've been threatening for a while. Brand is the man you see in videos from Harney County blowing a curled animal horn. I believe it's called a greater kudu. It's called also called the shofar. That's what the instrument's called. And hey, Brand, thanks for making time tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's totally my pleasure. Ken Dost is here. He's going to ride shotgun for a while as well. Ken recently made a trip down to the Resource Center and shared his research with the group. And aside from his voice, I think the only other sound was jaws hitting the table. Welcome back, Ken. Thanks for driving down to Burns.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm anxious to go back again, and thank you for having me on.
Oh, great. Listen, we better get started since there's so much corruption and so little time. Well, Brand, the headline no one is going to see is Militia heavily armed with shovels and brooms clean up federal mess. Let's start with that. What the heck have you been doing since you've been at the Resource Center?
Well, you know, we got in here not knowing what to expect, but as we got to looking around, we thought, you know, if we're going to be here for a while, we need to clean this up because we don't want to be laying around or living in this squalor. And there was, as you can see from the videos, there was rat turds and urine, rat urine, and everywhere, and just reeked. So, and then, you know, to be good stewards of the people's property, we felt like it'd be the proper gesture to grab some shovels and brooms and get things cleaned up.
Well, that's awesome. Shovels, brooms, and dust masks. And it's astounding to me, and we'll have LaVoy talk later about the Indian artifacts that they had thrown in boxes and shoved down in the basement. And so that's just always remarkable to me that these people are such hypocrites. Here they closed Recapture Canyon for Indian artifacts that were actually cliff dwellings that nobody could harm. And here they have these Indian artifacts just shoved in the basement, improperly stored. So
these are sacred things to the Paiute Indians. And they've basically been desecrated. Not only did they hide them away where nobody could look at them and appreciate them, but then they let the animals poop on them. So, anything that's sacred, keep that sacredness. You've got to keep it from getting desecrated, and that's exactly what the BLM has done. They desecrated these sacred items.
Yeah, and if I could say something for a minute, at the town hall meeting last night, one woman stood up and she castigated Ammon and you guys for destroying the artifacts. I mean, this is the misinformation that's getting out there. I mean, just total misinformation. When I was down there, the museum part and the visitor center was completely locked up and it was completely clean.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, It's just, they're going to say, they're going to keep the lies coming. I mean, it's unbelievable. Somebody's saying that there are crisis actors. I know they're disinfo agents saying that, if the Bundys don't, get what their way, that they're going to lock off the land and people aren't going to go hiking. Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So as usual, if you want to know the truth, just look 180 degrees in the opposite direction from what they're saying, and you'll come up with the truth. So one thing I wanted to ask you about, Bran, is there's been reports from some people, and I don't know these people, of seeing armored vehicles rolling into Burns. Have you been seeing that?
I know there's one in there, but, that's no surprise. But there's going to be posturing. That makes perfect sense to me. So, and, it's no big deal as far as I'm concerned. It's going to happen, but they've been posturing all along. They did psyops on us, and it's just to see how we respond. And they want to have a show of force and see if we'll back down. And if we blink, then we back down and they win. So yeah, that's just all part of the game.
Absolutely, it's game theory being played out here, and so I admire your courage and to be up there and standing strong in this. But here's
thank you.
I really do, because I know they've game theoried this so heavily to keep people away, and they've done a good job at that. And so I admire the people that have gone up there. You've been up there for 3 weeks already, right?
Yeah, I was up here from the beginning.
Yep, exactly. So you were at the standoff at Bunkerville, correct?
Yes, I was there at the beginning also.
Right. So let's use this time to tell people why you blow the shofar. They think of that as a Jewish artifact kind of thing, and I don't think of it that way. I think of the lost tribes as being Europeans, and I think we agree on that. So tell them why you blow the shofar.
Well, there's a promise in the Old Testament. There's actually several promises. My favorite is Numbers chapter 10, verses 8 and 9. And in verse 9, it said, when you blow the trump, you shall be held in remembrance before your God, and he shall deliver you from your enemies. So that's the primary reason I blow it. There's other things. It's actually a call to gather. It's a call to arms. It's a call to the Lord to intercede and give us protection. So that's why I do it.
Well, it sounds like an offensive weapon and a defensive weapon.
Yes, it is. Anybody's looked at the walls of Jericho and what happened to them when all the priests blew the shofar for 7 days as they paraded around the walls of Jericho. They collapsed. So.
Yeah, well, I'm all in, and I think it's wonderful that you bring that and do that. There's a lot of things where there's a whole dimension that we don't see here, but it's it's very, very real, whether we see it or not. So
there's a gentleman by the name of Dan Winter, which is very, very popular and very famous for his research into quantum physics and into the DNA, and anybody can look him up and find him. And I actually got curious one time and sent him a message on Facebook, and I said, asking him about the classical physics and quantum physics that is found in the shofar, and he sent me back a link to all the research he's done, and oh my gosh, I mean, it's a hard read. It takes me weeks to get through the whole thing, but he's very impressed with it. It's got all these physical properties, pi and phi, it's recursive, it's toroidal, and it actually will do sound wave implosion at the end of it, which puts a fractal into the divine matrix and causes the wave function to collapse towards a righteous state.
Well, I can't tell you how, you know me, I'm totally into quantum physics and affecting, the collapse in our direction. So I think that's awesome. And so, let's get behind it. And awesome. So what has been your feeling like? What kind of response do you get when you go into town and talk to the local folks and things? What has that been like for you? You're not a militiaman, but I know you're probably wearing fatigues most of the time, or I don't know. Tell me what you're doing.
Well, I haven't gone into town. I've been out here at the refuge the whole time, but we've had well over 250 ranchers. I don't know how many other folks come out here, probably another 100 or so. that I've had the opportunity to at least listen to, and a certain percentage I get to talk to. And of course, you got the media that's always out here, and I've met with them and talked to them. But the locals that are coming out here, they're giving us 100% support, especially the ranchers. We have complete support. Now, we've had a few here and there, some protesters that were government-funded type agent provocateurs, and you're not going to get anywhere with them, of course. But if they're really locals, and this is their neighborhood, and we have a chance to talk to them, they express their support for us.
Excellent. I'm glad to see that. And so, how are you folks supplied up there? What kinds of things do you need?
Well, everything's going really good right now. The locals have really been taking care of us. But at the same time, we always have new people coming in, and we have our security rotation, and we have to take care of them. And a lot of them come in, and they just don't really have much. They do spend their last dollar to get here. So, anything that people can donate, we certainly appreciate. Of course, food is always number one item. Water is a big item. And then, just the things that you use up every day, like toothpaste and toilet paper, things of that nature.
Awesome. Okay.
Bananas. Jason just said bananas. We need bananas.
Yeah, bananas. Yeah, need a blender, need some smoothies going on. Bananas and coconut milk. Yeah, I'm in. Okay, terrific. So, there's been, to me, where they're doing a full spectrum kind of dominance here. This week, I don't know if you're aware that News 8 went out and talked to Cliven Bundy because people are calling for his arrest and stuff. I don't know if you saw that, because I know you're out there, and so you may not get all the news.
Yeah, I did. It's the same old game they always play. They want to demonize the good people, the good ranchers, the producers. These people would just stop and think, where does their food come from? But unfortunately, so many of them are so dumbed down that they never even think about that. But yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, and I just want to remind everybody that News 8 Now, the company that owns that, is owned by a man named Decker Anstrom, and he was on the Friends of Harry Reid. I think he was number 5 or 6 on supporters of Harry Reid for the financial donations that he's given to Harry Reid.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, he's just News 8 Now is Harry Reid's mouthpiece, and that's all.
Well, I'm glad you just let me know that, because from what I understand, they want to interview me when we get back so they can forget the interview.
Yeah, News 8 Now, they make everybody out to be clowns. They will edit that down. I mean, it'll be ugly. I can almost guarantee that. So the land adjacent to the Bundy.
Patricia, real quick, this is Nighthawk. I'm going to be live streaming you now because we've been reporting on this since day one, and I'm going to be setting this up for live stream.
Okay.
So just wanted to let you know. Okay,
sounds good.
All right,
cool. And I just want to remind everybody, and I know you know this, Brand, that the land adjacent to Bundy Ranch, 92 acres, is owned by Reed Bunkerville LLC, and also the BLM, who shouldn't be owning any land up there. So it's the same old story, And 63% of the people in that county work for the federal government, or at least some part of the government. Either it's county, state, or federal. I mean, so they have just demolished any free enterprise in that county and just impoverished the people. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Of course. These are non-productive jobs. They have the illusion of production, but they steal the production and they funnel it elsewhere, primarily outside of the county and outside of the state, and to their friends ultimately, because that's what the BLM does. When you work for the BLM, what do? They steal the land, they steal the people's production, they steal their money, and where does it go? It goes into the federal black hole. So, I look at this as, there's going to be some upset people, of course, because we have displaced 300 of these non-productive stealing jobs. But at the same time, they were looking for a job when they found the job. Okay, and what's the honorable thing to do is to get in and be a producer of, be a good citizen and do something for your country and for your fellow man. So, and then anytime you get people on the federal dole, it's just a demise. It's an absolute meltdown of your society, because you always become beholden to this federal government. And then, you lose all your constitutional rights, you lose your civil rights, you lose everything ultimately, you lose your property and land. And those people are working for the government. They think they're above reproach. If this will ever catch up to them, I'm sorry. It might catch up to you a little bit later than the average person, but it's going to catch up to you too. Eventually, you're just going to be nothing but a pitiful, pathetic serf working for this criminal government.
Yeah, and that's what it really is. So do you have any updates? Because I've been hearing different things, and I know we've had some misinfo, disinfo about Judge Gratsky and his relationship to the BLM, that he has relatives in the BLM, and his relationship to Sheriff Ward. Have you guys been able to sort that out at all?
Well, Judge Gratsky thinks he's king. He's the king of Harney County. Yes, he does have a relative that works for the BLM. Oh, isn't that wonderful? And, as far as Sheriff Ward, I actually tend to think he's a pretty decent guy. He's just over his head, and he's got this pressure coming down on him. I don't doubt that he's been threatened, his family's been threatened. But eventually, you got to decide to stand on the right, stand for right and truthfulness. Now, Gratsky, he's a real gem. We've been watching him at these meetings, and they had a meeting here last night. I watched it live streaming from the refuge. It was there at the high school. And what a manipulation. They cherry picked. Well, first of all, that was his group of people at that meeting. Excuse me, I got a cough. And just prior to that, you had Chris Ann Hall a few hours before, and she gave her lectures on the Constitution, and there was standing room only there at the fairgrounds. So you're looking at 1,000+ people. Well, now Gratsky's group
standing room only, 1,000 people.
Yes,
and she had standing room only.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a big turnout in a small town.
Oh yeah, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. And then Gratsky had his meeting, which was pretty much just handpicked people, and I'm going to guess they may have had 200 right in that area, and that blew up in his face. There was a lot of people who were very, very upset with him, and they tried to cherry pick the people they wanted to have talk. And he looked really pitiful. He did everything he could to keep, people from speaking that were pro Bundy's. So, and we had people there. In fact, Ammon went there, which was pretty amazing to me, actually. And but there was people there who were kind of watching. Shauna was there. And they took a long, hard look at the people that were allowed to speak and those that weren't, and then the applause, who got the applause and who didn't. And she said she felt like 2/3 of those people were for the Bundys and what we're doing here.
Well, what a difference 3 weeks makes.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Well, that's
it's amazing.
Bran, that's really excellent, because I know the first meeting that they, and they run total Delphi technique. It's a heavily managed meeting when they're involved. And I just want to give Rene Powers credit here. She's listening and will be with us later, but she calls him Judge Nasty. So it's good. So they've done that, but already the tide's turning, and he's not even able to control his own people. So I think that's pretty awesome. And so tell people.
Well, I think I think his little group is starting to implode, and I think there's starting to be cracks in their, in their posturing and their defense. And I think it's just going to take a little more to bring the whole thing down. I see it as a house of cards right now.
Well, that's awesome. It's interesting because somebody's put out this, and we know it's like totalitarian nonsense. I mean, just everything. And they put out a really interesting, it's called A Warning to the West. And it's comparing what's going on with Dwight and Stephen Hammond and what you folks are doing up there, seen in the light of Alexander Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag Archipelago. And Solzhenitsyn thoroughly documented the iron-fisted regulatory scheme that demanded control over all thoughts, actions, words, and resources. Solzhenitsyn suffered through his firsthand experience while in the hands of 20th century government. What would this look like in the 21st century? We headed down that same path? Absolutely. Absolutely. They had a prosecutor general there who had the right to intervene in any judicial proceeding. He characterizes the nature of this office as having the power to pardon and punish at its own discretion without any limitation whatsoever. Does that sound familiar to you?
Oh, absolutely. Now, if you go into any kind of federal court for anything, who's your plaintiff? The federal government. Who's the judge? A federal judge. Who's the prosecuting attorney? A federal prosecuting attorney. Who's your defense attorney? Well, if you get one assigned to you, it'll be a federal, but it's all stacked against you, and there's no way you're going to win. Now, I don't know if you remember Wayne Hayes and Wayne Hayes Jr., but they tried to fight things through the federal courts. Well, when Judge R.C. Jones ruled in their favor here a few years ago and said that what the BLM and the Forestry Service was doing was a shock to the conscience of the court. Well, they thought they won. Well, they did, and got awarded, I think it was $14 million, but then it got appealed to the Ninth Circuit. Well, Monday, what happened? The whole thing got turned completely over. They have now lost everything. I was just going to bring that up. I'm glad to hear you talk about it. So keep going. Well, they've just lost everything, and I like the comment that Wayne Hayes Jr. said. I guess they're trying to inflate the roles of the militia. That's a great comment. That really is. And I'm trying to get a hold of Judge Robert C. Jones that you mentioned. And because you know what they're overturning that on, saying that they found that the judge was biased against the government. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. That's saying that the judge is biased against thieves and murderers. He should be. Yeah. He said it shocked the conscience of the court what they did, and he gave a laundry list of felonies that those agents had committed against the Hages. And yet, I thought that was one of the weakest findings I ever found, because it forced the Hages to sign the contract with the BLM again, and it never indicted any of those agents. So it was already pretty weak anyway, and yet they've come back and reversed it because they're desperate. Yeah. Well, what it does is it makes it very clear what the American people are up against. Now, if there was any question before of what's going on with the BLM, the Forestry Service, and the federal courts and federal judges, well, if there was any question before, there's no question about it now. And I think what you're going to do is you're going to see all these ranchers in the western states are going to consolidate their efforts, and they're going to throw their support behind people like us and militias. And so I just think they just cleared things up perfectly for the people in the West. Yeah, and it's not, I wish it was just ranchers that are going through this, but we know Jim Cole from Maxim Labs, the judge gave them 45 days to comply with this, things they had to do. And the FDA attorney was just stomping her foot going, no. And the judge said, hey, it's been 4 years. What's another 45 days? Well, they knew they would be able to comply. And so in 2 weeks, the judge issued the injunction against Maxim Labs. He was forced from the Department of Injustice to do that. And so Edmund Bundy is completely right when he said it's just like it was before 1776, when the king owned everything and the king's men could do whatever they wanted. And you mentioned Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and he puts a really nice historical perspective on all this. And do you remember what he said? We just didn't love liberty enough. We just didn't love freedom enough. And he said, had those government agents thought that they might not return home, if we would have just gathered anything that we could use to defend ourselves, and when they showed up, take them out. And if we would have done that, then it could have been a whole different thing, a whole different future. Well, we can learn from history, or we can, repeat history. Hopefully, at this point in time, we're learning from history. I just wish the average American person would really perk up and throw their weight behind this effort. Just talk to, you don't have to come here, but man the phones. Call, just let your, voice be heard, whether it's your congressman, your senator, or your sheriff. And I'd like to see the sheriffs, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Association get together and just make it a mantra that we got to save America. Because if we don't, the way I look at it, we have a small window of opportunity to turn things around. I mean, it's been ratcheted up that much. And if we don't do it, we're in some serious trouble.
Absolutely. My new mantra is liberty and justice for all. And I think that's what we...
Let me read you something.
Sure.
Can I read you something real quick?
Sure. Hold on for a minute. And I just need to do my little station ID thing. We're live streaming, so I know the boss is listening. You're listening to Sacred Cow Barbecue on freedomslips.com. This is Revolution Radio. My guest tonight for this hour is Brand Thornton, and Ken Dost will be joining us later, and LaVoy Finicum and Rene Powers. So what were you going to read me tonight?
Well, you remember the statement by, I think, if I could pronounce his name correctly, Mubler. Okay, is perhaps best remembered for the quotation. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Well, let's just insert the name ranchers for the socialists, and said first they came for the ranchers, and I did speak out, and I acted. So that comes from Jason Patrick right there.
Right. I'm familiar with that quote. I'm kind of not into the whole World War II evil Nazi thing, but the principle I agree with. And the other thing is gun registration leads to gun confiscation. And I believe what Solzhenitsyn was talking about is, if they hadn't given up their guns, this would have never happened. And even then, after they gave up their guns, if they'd gone out with a fireplace poker or a bat or just something, that they could have made a difference. But it's time not to give up your guns.
Well, they're ratcheting everything up across this nation. It shouldn't be brain surgery to see what they're doing, or rocket science. I mean, you see these patterns. It's everywhere. Gun confiscation, and then you get into the vaccinations and the chemtrails and the GMO foods, fluoride in the water, which are soft kills. Now they're coming for our food. Well, you remember what Henry Kissinger said? If you want to control a nation, you control their gas and oil. If you want to control the people, you control their food. So, and these patterns are been ratcheted up tremendously in just the last little while. So why would anybody even have a hard time understanding what's going on unless you want to call it, Stockholm Syndrome? So,
right.
They need to break out of that. They need to break out of those mental chains and because once you're on the boxcars going for the concentration camps, in this case, the FEMA camps, it's over with. You can't fight anymore. It's over with. You got to start fighting now in any way that you can.
Okay, so Brand, let's but resistance, what we resist persists, and so I think we have to have a positive spin on it. That we're not just fighting the tyranny, but that we're fighting for freedom. We're doing something positive here, and so
absolutely
right, because that's what that goes with. So. Here's a quote by Reverend Samuel Williams from 1774. In a despotic government, the only principle by which the tyrant is to move the whole machine is by fear, the servile dread of his power. Well, how have you seen the ranchers from when you got there to they keep coming back and visiting and things like that? How has their attitude changed? I believe that Ammon has really spoken some faith and some hope into these people. In your folks'
well, Ammon, Yeah, Emmett is an absolutely amazing human being. He's got great communication skills, and his heart is completely into it. Everything you see about that man is 24 karat gold. He is completely genuine, and that radiates from him to these people. It resonates. They feel it. They see it. And he's got meetings lined up all the way into the middle of next week. We're going into, the neighboring counties, neighboring towns, and the response is tremendous. People are requesting him all the time. We just had a few ranchers here just a half hour ago when they finally left, and this is their second time they've been back here. And prior to them, we had another rancher, a young man, and so it's constantly happening. And the response is really taking hold, and the people are starting to see that they can be free, that they can control their lives, and they want that yoke off their neck. Now, here's an interesting contrast. We've been very transparent here, regardless of what the major news outlet said, but we've allowed anybody to come here and help them. We've even had bird watchers, and I escorted them where the birds were, But we've been completely transparent. We've answered all their questions, or at least done the best that we could. We haven't shooed anybody away. But if you go into town there and you try to talk to the sheriffs, or if you try to talk to the FBI, it's, no comment, no comment, no comment. Try to talk to the judge, no comment. You see what I'm saying? There's no transparency there. And it's as strong as the foundations of heaven that they're hiding something. Anytime you won't even talk to people, you won't even try to answer the questions because you've got something to hide. And it's very obvious there's a lot to hide there.
Absolutely. Well, and you guys have been shoveling the paths and keeping the place open so that bird watchers can come and enjoy the area, right?
Oh, yeah, we shovel the path when we have snow, and we had quite a bit there for a while. But we keep it clear. We keep the roads clear. We've there's quite a bit of snow buildup in certain areas where, the visitors would park their vehicles. We got that all cleared off for them. It's turned really muddy, so we got some of the heavy equipment putting gravel down where the muddy roads are so that make it safe to travel on. So there's an awful lot going here that's positive. And we do that because this is the people's land. This is the people's property. And right now, we are just stewards of it. That's all we are. And on another note, people keep saying, I've heard we're trespassing. Well, it's public land, and there's no trespassing signs anywhere. They say we broke in. Well, we didn't break into anything. I think they left it wide open for us.
You're kidding me. They close it down?
No.
All right. So,
we come up here. The heat was on. Some of the lights were on. And all the doors were open.
Hold on. Hawk wants to say something. What's up, Hawk?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you guys realize it, but you got the Oregonian that is saying that you guys created a road that was not a road and drove it right through some kind of sacred ground. I mean, you do understand that no matter what you do and no matter how you clear the snow, you're going to end up being ostracized over this, right?
Oh, yeah. And what they're specifically referring to is the bunkhouse and kitchen. There's a loop there so that, if you have a lot of people, you don't have to turn around and go back out the way you came in. Now, anyhow, there's this other little piece of the road was snowed in, and basically all we did is clear it out. And we're talking, 30 yards, maybe 30 yards at the most, of an existing neglected road. That's what they're talking about.
Yes, of course. I just wanted to make sure you was aware of that.
We're aware of it.
It doesn't matter what they do, they'll make up a lie about it. You could go out and give out flowers to everybody in town. They're going to complain that you tore up flowers to give to people.
Of course. And Patricia, give me about 1 second. We are also live stream over on YouTube with about 1,000. I ain't checked it yet, but it's ramping up to that. The reason you're not seeing video, folks, is I'm protecting everybody's phone numbers. So, just look at the screaming caveman and listen to the audio, because that's the only important thing here anyway. Okay? So anyway, I'll shut up now.
Okay, no problem, Hawk. Thanks. So the other thing I want to talk about with you, because I think you have a handle on this, what I hear from other people is they're just doing a lot of saber rattling. I don't think the federal government at this juncture can come in and do a Waco and not suffer some severe consequences.
Absolutely. I can't really speak about some things, but there's a major organization that's working behind the scene. Everybody's heard about them, and they're really good at what they do. And I'll just say they can crash computers, and they can find personal information, and they can put it out there. And then we got commitments from, I'm going to dare say, probably up to 5,000 militia from Idaho to Oregon to Northern California to Montana that are on call. Even as far away as Arizona, they're all on call right now. And we have a good support groups. We have a good plan. So if they try to do anything, it would just blow up in their face. I don't think it'd have any place to hide. It would make the American people so angry. Let's say the American patriot so angry, that this has happened again. They've been, for example, Oath Keepers have been saying there are no more free Wacos. Well, that pretty well sums it up right there.
Right. I think that's awesome, and I think that's why they haven't retaliated more yet. They can't afford to. Ammon has been such a great spokesman. Ryan, LaVoy, all you folks have been so well-mannered and haven't done anything that they can get upset about, so that they really can't start this thing. They can't start it off. So I want to talk to you about this evidence. You folks have uncovered through research an enormous amount of evidence. Mm-hmm. And I know you're holding it back. Yeah. But it's not helpful. Yes,
we're holding back the lion's share of it. We've leaked a little bit here and there, and that is their biggest fear. Of course, you don't want to dump it out there, because it's just going to get lost. But it has been disseminated for our protection and for the protection of this information. And the big thing that we're working on right now is getting it before a grand jury. And it looks like the local folks are setting up a investigation grand jury first, okay? And I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but there's 28 members, and they've already started looking at the information that we have, and then it'll go to a regular grand jury, and from that point on, they'll issue the subpoenas, indictments, or whatever.
When you say grand jury, are you talking a common law grand jury?
What's that?
Are you talking about a common law grand jury, Bran?
Yeah, common law grand jury.
Okay, because that's different. Because I don't believe in. Maybe you can correct me on this. That the Hammond case ever went before the federal grand jury. I don't believe it.
That's what we that's what we understand also.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think this is awesome. So you guys have a feeling how long you guys are going to be up there? I know you're in for a penny, in for a pound.
Well, it's very fluid. It seems like for every 2 steps we take forward, we take 1 step back. But we're making progress, and that's the important thing. And right now it's just kind of baby steps. And so we'll just keep going that direction. And but as far as the time element, I would be very reluctant to give a time element.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Bronze Star that a retired colonel gave to Ammon?
Yeah, he did. I wasn't there at that presentation, but he presented him with the Bronze Star, and then we just recently had a sheriff from Reno, Nevada, came up with his family and gave him his shield, because of what he's doing. So, and then there was another gentleman, and I think he's Oh, I haven't really had the chance to talk to him, but he's lost 2 legs. And what those are what was that branch of government? Was he Navy, the one that presented his uniform to? Okay. And then he had been in some bad stuff in the war, and he presented his Navy uniform to Ammon also. So a lot of respect there.
That kind of stuff makes me cry. So I'm delighted to see him getting the recognition that he deserves, because, there's no better combination than humble and confident, and that's what you find in the Bundy brothers. They're very well spoken. They're humble about it, and they attract good people to them. So has Chris Briles been around anymore? The fire marshal that resigned, has he been out to see you folks?
Oh, yeah. He comes periodically. He comes to visit us. So, and that man's a very brave man for him to stand up the way he did, because his life will never be the same there in Burns unless, it will, when we win this thing. But he's, he knows it's a calculated risk, and he knows what will happen if things didn't work out the right way. But he stood upon principle. And he brought forth some really good information, as you know, that FBI was posing as militia in town and, doing these shady things.
Yeah, exactly, doing the false flag kind of stuff. So, people have brought out video, and I'm not sure. It looks like I'm like 90% sure that those are crisis actors, and that's the real thing going on. Has there been any talk amongst you folks out at the resource center? I don't want to.
Not much. Not much. We haven't paid much attention to it. I really got a kick out of it, though, that she's up here. They did a voice analysis on I forget what it's called, and I guess it was a perfect match. So, and then if you look at her face real close, it looks like she looks like the other people from these other false flags. So I don't know what she's doing here, but she's here.
I know. It's just putting out disinformation, saying that, we won't be able to go hiking. But actually, my guest last week was Norm France, and he actually spent. I'm dialing Ken in. Sorry about that.
Hello.
Okay, Ken, hold on. And
okay, sorry.
And he said as a young person, he would spend his summers up there, Steen Mountain and that whole area, and they went everywhere. There were no fences, The Bunnies always talk about how there's different forms of land rights, that they have grazing rights, but other people have recreation rights, and that there are mineral rights under the soil and things like that. So there's never been any land off.
They're multiple use lands. And they got so much of that locked up, and there are lots more of it up all the time. So, ultimately, all those hikers and sightseers, hunters, and fishermen are going to be locked totally out. So, all the ranchers that I've talked to, they have no problem working with or allowing people. And they, you saw Clive and Bundy when we had all of our big anniversary parties up there. He said, come on out, enjoy the river, and come with the barbecue. And, kids all over the place up and down that river swimming, and people just walking all over the place. And, so... it's multiple use land, and from what I've seen, the ranchers and farmers are more than happy to share it.
Right. Have you had what's going on with Susie Hammond, Dwight Hammond's wife? I saw her on Lou Dobbs the other day, and what is disturbing me about when people are getting this national attention, number one, they always find a way to slam the Bundys. Lou Dobbs said, well, I don't want to mention the Bundys, bring up the Bundys like it's a bad word. Susie Hammond would not be on Lou Dobbs if it wasn't for Ammon Bundy. And so the second thing is no one's mentioning the corruption in the courtroom. And, like this was a fair deal that they got convicted fair and square. That's what concerns me when people are on the national media and not bringing that up. How do you feel about that?
Well, they're very ignorant. That's double jeopardy. If you look at if you're in jeopardy of being thrown in jail and your rights taken from you, and it happens twice for the same supposed offense, isn't that double jeopardy?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the very yeah, it's the very essence of it is what was done to them. As far as Susie Hammond is concerned, she's really a tough lady from what I understand. And, you know, I think, like you said, what Ammon has done here has brought a spotlight to that situation that would not ordinarily be there. And, you know, there was a young lady that was talking at the meeting last night, Gratsky's meeting, and she just railed and raked over them, telling them how selfish and self-centered they were, that not one single person had addressed the Hammond situation in that meeting. And she goes, that is the elephant in this room. And again, they're talking about, now they're trying to say, if you'll just leave, we will address it. We will try to take care of it.
Brand,
I'm sorry. Your time is over with.
Brand, hold on. I'm hearing the music. We're gonna have a break, and we'll be back. And we'll be back in just a bit.
Okay, gotcha. Commercials. Yeah, I thought that was funny that last one. Saying, you guys, you just go. Then we'll do what we can for the Hammond. You had your chance. You did nothing.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
Why am I here?
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here.
You haven't answered my question.
The Matrix is older than you know, as you are undoubtedly gathering. The anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation.
Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lassonde.
Listen in on Mondays, 8 Eastern Time on Revolution Radio for Journeys with JP. With a variety of guests, each giving their perspective on their journey into the now. Join me and my guests Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio Studio B.
Every Tuesday evening on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, we present our goddess spiritual warrior, Kathy Bilski.
I command. I call to the architect of the universe's divine creators and ask for permission to quantum leap the world in all life forms on all planes and dimensions, seen and unseen, connected with planet Earth, to let us go beyond our known potential into the greatest unknown golden age the universes and worlds and all planets have ever experienced.
Kathy teaches the spiritual truth so that you may create a better life and be able to make positive changes for yourself and for the planet. She helps us remember that we are not powerless, but very creative spiritual beings having an Earth experience. Time to quantum leap into the age of divine enlightenment and let Kathy provide you with the tools of knowledge you need to awaken spiritually. That's the Quantum Leap Show. Let Light Unite every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio Studio B.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our Matrix of Truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Sacred Cow Barbecue. I'm your host, Patricia Aiken. We're doing this a little bit differently tonight because of the live feed. Usually I'm able to drop things and bring other people back in and things like that. So I'm going to be, I'll be adding Brand back in to finish his thought on that. And I'm saying good evening to LaVoy Finicum. LaVoy, are you with us? Let's see. Oh, I hear some noise there. And I think Ken Dost, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Let me try LaVoy one more time. Let's see. I think we're trying to get them. Okay.
The logistics on this are mind-boggling.
Okay, LaVoy, are you with us? Ken, I think Brand, I think I've got you back, don't I?
Yeah, you got me back.
Okay, let's see. This is a big. Let's see how much Skype can handle here tonight. So, and I don't think I've got LaVoy yet. So let me try him one more time. See if I can get him. Okay, there we go. But I can't. But Brand, you were finishing up a thought before the break. You want to go ahead with that?
Yeah, at the meeting with Miss King Gratsky or King Nasty's meeting, whatever you want to call him, he brought up the point: if you all would just leave, then we would address the Hammond situation, and we'd see if President Obama would what do they call it when they let him out or something? I forget the name of it. And what's that? Clemency. Clemency.
Yeah, clemency.
Yeah. So, and I just wanted to laugh. I was like, you guys didn't even mention him. All this time you have rebutted every one of our efforts. For example, the redress of grievances, which would just be the beginning of addressing that. You totally shut us down all this time. And now all of a sudden you're telling us, if you leave, we'll address this. That is just, it's garbage. The fact that Ammon and his people have done this is put the spotlight on it. And that's the only reason that anything is happening at this time.
Well, it shouldn't have anything. One has nothing to do with the other issue to begin with. That's the problem. I mean, this guy's a judge, and he's basically holding the Hammonds hostage until Ammon releases. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And judges
I like
don't
how
act
you
like
put that.
Judges don't act like that. I mean, come on.
Yeah. The judge is holding them hostage. Basically, you hit the nail right on the head. Trying to get us leave, he's holding hostage.
Yes, and that's reprehensible. The judge, Brock, is thrown in prison himself and investigated. That's not even following the rule of law. That obliterates all rule of law. It just throws it down the toilet. And he did it on a public platform.
Yeah. King Nasty.
Yeah, that's not surprising. Okay, I'm still trying. I just want to reintroduce my guest, Brand Thornton's here, and also Ken Dost and Rene Powers. If you want to say good evening, you're welcome to. But I know you're listening, and we'll be talking with you. I'm still trying to bring LaVoy in, and I'm over my head here. So
yeah, what I'd like to say something about Judge Nasty.
Go right ahead. I'm going to be, I'm trying to dial LaVoy.
You got it.
Right ahead.
Hi, guys. We've done a lot of research in the last 3 weeks. There's been quite a few of us behind the scenes. And as we know, he's got a lot of conflict going on. And when I saw him stand at that meeting and say the words, like you had just said, holding them hostage, holding the Hammonds hostage, I thought to myself, what makes him feel that he is untouchable? What makes him feel that he can do no wrong and he has no accountability? And guys, the one thing I got to say is when your kids or someone acts like that, you got to ask them, what do you have over the other guy? What do you have that's happened and is such a secret in that town that you yourself have such control over these people? Because all I can say is, Judge Nasty, if you're listening, this is deplorable. No one acts like this. And for you to feel you have the power to do this, I have to question who you're holding something over. And what this usually shows us when we study the FBI and when we study how they literally frame people, which is sad, what we have to say is, what is it that you know that allows you to hold it over their head, because they know if you belly up, you can turn evidence and save your own butt. This is my thought, guys, and I'm gonna leave it at that and mute out, because this is really a sore subject. Because when I watched him say that, and I saw him in that mustard yellow shirt with that bad brown tie, I thought, first of all, I thought, what in the world? He is giving such a picture of creepy. And these people, it's like the Stepford show, So anyways, I just would like to know.
That's a great point, Rene. Great point. Listen, I think I've been able to bring LaVoy in finally. LaVoy, welcome to LaVoy Finicum. Welcome to Sacred Cow Barbecue again. Thank you so much.
This is Jeanette Finicum, his wife. He'll be down in just a minute. He wanted me to go ahead and accept the call.
Oh, aren't you great, Jeanette? Do you want to talk with us tonight? I want to talk about the children being taken from you. If you're shy about that, I'll wait for LaVoy.
Yes, I'm a little bit shy about that right now.
Okay, well, we're impressed with your husband's character. You married a great man.
I did, didn't I?
You sure did. You sure did.
He's amazing.
Excellent. Well, thanks. If you'll just hang on here, that's great. And he can just jump in whenever he gets here. Thank you so much, Jeanette. We're all praying for you folks. So
thank you so much.
Okay. Ken, you brought up a point that everyone's talking double jeopardy, but you said double jeopardy only applies in murder cases. Is that true?
Well, I didn't. That wasn't me that said that. But yeah, as I understand it, though, it only applies to murder cases. I think what's going on here with the Hammonds being recharged is what's going on behind the scenes within the county, within the county.
Where did I go wrong? It's his indictment.
Oops.
Yeah, whatever.
We're bringing people in. Okay, so finish your thought on that, Ken, about double jeopardy.
Well, I think what you got going on here is you have something called warrants, and warrants are bonds, and somebody's making money on the backside of this by putting the Hammonds back in prison. And I think the only way that we're going to vet this thing out is if we get into those county records and we find out what bonds are being transferred and sold. And I without having the actual evidence at the moment, but having the processes by which they do this, I would bet my left leg that Judge Nasty is somewhere in the payroll within that.
So, but go ahead and
those are the things that we need to kind of vet out.
Double jeopardy is not just for murder cases. I just want you to know that double jeopardy is not just for murder cases. And what I saw here and want to interject is those who know the prosecutor involved, and I call her Crazy Lacey, the lady who was stalking the other prosecutor. It was almost as if she created a controversy so she could be near the man she was stalking. And she's pretty fascinating part of this too. LaVoy, have you been able to join us yet?
I have. I'm not sure how long I can join you, but I'm here for just a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arizona rancher LaVoy Finicum. And also a foster parent, or recently foster parent. You've been a foster parent for 12 years. Do you want to tell us what happened?
Well, kind of what seems to be happening is kind of, I guess, what you might call asymmetrical warfare. It seems like that they're putting pressure on a lot of people here from every angle where they might be able to put pressure on them. I'm not the only family that's kind of been targeted with the families, and so I've been a professional, what is called a therapeutic foster parent, and that's the highest level. We take the most troubled teenage boys and we try to bring them out of a detention center or some type of lockdown facility and try to reintegrate them into family life and into society. And so I've been doing that for a long time, and because I was up here, the license agency, or they said it came right down from the governor's office, and they just walked right in, pulled the kids out, and took them. And so, yeah, that was unfortunate. It was very sad for the boys, but it's been a good thing over the years. I've really enjoyed working with these boys and trying to help them, and so I've been very appreciative of that opportunity.
And so you've had an opportunity to see boys grow up into men. Troubled teens grow up into not troubled men.
Yes, that was definitely the goal. And so the ranch was such a great tool for me to help work with these boys, because most of them have lived a life of in front of electronics of one sort or another, Game Boys and iPads and phones, and so in our home we completely eliminated all electronics, and so then they'd have to get out and work, and we gave them a chore with a live animal, so they learned to take care of something that was living, so they learned to be responsible for something that depended upon them, and then when I'd go out and work with them side by side, they'd really respond. They loved their boys, and so they loved being active and camping and riding horses. And then when they were out there, those walls and those resistance begin to kind of fade away, and then they begin to attach. And at that moment, you can start teaching these boys, and you can see their lives at that point start to change. And so the ranch has been a great tool to help these troubled teens.
Well, I know it can't be easy. It's not easy when it's your own child who's defiant and troubled and things like that. But to have, strangers in your house and make them part of your family has got to be 24/7, nights, weekends, holidays.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely, you have to have the right temperament for it. You got to have a natural love for boys and for youth and want to try to help. And I actually feel like I was very fortunate in that my parents were very loving parents, and my dad took a lot of time with us, and so it came natural for me to just kind of do the same as the way I was raised, and the boys really responded to that. My dad took me hunting and camping and chasing cows, and as a boy I loved it, and I found that these other boys, that they're just boys, that they respond to this physical activity, this physical stimulus that is positive and appropriate. And so
I think someone wrote a book on the importance of that to men, and I think it was called Wild at Heart, and that men need that experience. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that the Bundys, the ones that we know, are so well balanced.
Well, you have to do a couple things. You have to learn to work. You have to learn to go to bed. You have to learn to get up. Kind of some of the basic things of life, and again, for a child that's had no responsibilities or actually probably no structure in his life, to finally say, this animal, these chickens right here, they depend upon you for their life. They can't feed themselves. They can't turn the water on and water themselves, and so you have to. Their lives are in your hands, and so when they begin to grasp that this is important to these. To do this, then they start learning responsibility of whether it's taking care of the horses or the dogs or the cat. I give each one the child something that's living that they needed to be responsible for.
Well, I've seen animals have remarkable influences on therapeutic value to children. I was on the board at a petting zoo. I mentioned this the other day to you, and they brought children from this long-term care facility, and some of them were brought out on stretchers because they were fully catatonic. They hadn't moved, done anything. And just when they held some of these little animals up to them and put them next to them, those children started giggling. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. And I have another friend who has MS, and she found out that if she rode a horse, and it was just, just around the paddock, I mean, nothing, strenuous or anything, that just an hour of that gave her a full day of being able to walk without a walker.
Well, that's amazing. That really is amazing. But it is. It's good for them. Be out and get some good clean air, some good clean dirt under their fingernails, and just do regular physical work. And so it's been a blessing to me. And the only reason I share this and let people know is because it's important for people to know what the government's capable of doing and what they do. And
exactly.
At certain levels, it's just intolerable what we've allowed a central power to begin to do to its citizens. And so that's the only reason why I share it.
LaVoy, so far the governor is denying any involvement.
Yes, and I read that. I read that in the article. And so somebody's either got the story straight or somebody's not telling the truth. Because when they came to my wife and said, the CPS workers, I believe that's who it was, she said, the CPS workers said, we're so sorry, because we had a great relationship with them. We've worked with them for years and years. And so it's come right down from the governor's office. And so either the lowly workers are lying or the governor is not being quite upright.
Yeah, what a surprise that would be. But, in a way,
Right.
LaVoy, I can see their point. They really don't want you and Jeanette raising any more ammons.
That's right. Let's not have anybody that carries a pocket constitution. Well, we can't have any of that type of thing.
No, that would be further disaster for us. Further disaster. There's some other things that you talked about this week, and I'd like to go over before I let you go. And one of them is that let me see, where did I put this? It was something about you're having a signing ceremony. Is it tomorrow? Is it last Friday? About grazing rights as
Saturday. It's Saturday, and that's actually where when you called, I was just driving back onto the compound. I've been on a road with a security detail. We drove into Boise to pick up a rancher that flew all the way in from New Mexico, and he's here to take the same stand that Clive and Bundy and myself did on national TV. And then we got some ranchers here in from Malheur County or Harney County. We have a family that's also going to do it. So it's a big deal. And so we actually just barely pulled in, and I told my wife and said, go and try to help find Ammon and Ryan and introduce them. And so it may not seem like a big deal. The world may not understand how big of a thing it is. But what's happening is when this rancher signs this and says, I now sign a declaration of emancipation from the federal government and cancel all contracts between me and the Forest Service and BLM, that's like crossing the Rubicon. You have crossed the river, and now you've laid everything on the line. You're risking everything. You're making a very bold stand. You say, I will no longer acknowledge you, federal government, and I will no longer pay your grazing fee. I'll acknowledge and uphold my county and my state. And so at that moment, he's making the same stand that Clive and Bundy made. And we promised him that
Go ahead. Because there's a big difference between grazing rights and grazing fees. Grazing fees have nothing to do with grazing rights. Grazing rights are not privileges. They are rights.
Yep. And when it's a fee, that means it's theirs, and they're leasing back to you what they consider to be theirs. And so it's very important that people understand that the grazing rights were established under natural law or common law before there was ever any BLM or Forest Service even in existence. All these things existed long before that.
Right, exactly. Even before, I know in Arizona, even before the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, people had grazing rights that stretched back to that transferred with that treaty.
Yeah.
So I know that's true. So I'm gonna ask someone. I'm gonna let you go, LaVoy. But after I let folks ask you, we've got Rene Powers is here. Brandon Thornton, I think, is still on the line. Maybe, maybe not. I don't see his call here, but I know Ken Dost may have a question for you, and then we'll let you go. Anybody have a question they'd like to ask LaVoy?
Well,
Hey, Patricia.
Yes.
Real quick. We did an interview with LaVoy yesterday. I'm sure you remember. It's the Revolution Radio. Sherry was out there talking to him, and then we lost track. And I wanted to make sure that he has our number. So if they have anything they need to get out fast, we're right here. We have the extra studio and the extra everything to get everything going. So, and
that would be great. Let me Revolution Radio, and I want to make sure I got that number. Could you give that to me?
I'm going to
tell you what. Hawk? Why don't you type it into the chat for me, and I will text it over to LaVoy.
That will work really good.
Exactly, because I don't want to become public knowledge.
Okay, that's all good. Awesome. LaVoy, you have been such an inspiration to people, and that's why the Empire has struck back here. Do you folks plan to appeal this situation with the children?
We've my wife and I are just I'm pondering that. We're thinking about if it would help highlight what, the corruption of the government when they do things like this, then we might have maybe a duty or a responsibility to use every avenue we have to kind of bring these things to light. And so we're thinking about it. And what it would keep all the kids would keep all of that completely separate and private and stuff, and we could move forward without bringing any personal things in. And so it's very important. Those boys meant a lot to us, and so we want to keep them out of the limelight, and we will, and we can do that. And so, and the boys we had just before they left, they were tremendous kids. It definitely was a sad day when they called to let me know that they were no longer going to be a part of our family. But I was so proud of the growth that they'd made and the changes they'd made in their lives. I just have such high hope for this particular group that was currently in my home, that they're going to do well.
Yeah, well, so next time you hear the government talking about how they're preserving things for future generations, people can just think about this and what tremendous hypocrites they are. Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Well, I think we've kind of gotten a little jaded when any politician or officer tells us something. We always seem to start taking more and more with a grain of salt. It kind of seems like it's kind of getting more and more difficult to believe sometimes.
So are you going to back off this a little bit? Take a lower profile?
Oh, with what I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
No, we're here at the Harney County Resource Center, and we're full steam ahead. We're committed to what we're doing. In fact, the CNN, when we heard that the FBI reached out to us and was trying to make contact with us last night, I said, yeah, they were calling us and reaching out to us, and they said, well, okay, so you kind of want to know, well, we're going to negotiate some type of truce and how is. I said, no, we like. It's important to have dialogue, but our course isn't changing. We're fixed, and just make sure that to understand that these buildings never go back to the feds; they go back to Harney County. So, well, we like conversation, we like dialogue, but we're not changing our stand.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny that Ammon lost the bet, because I know when the BLM had someone call Ryan before the standoff that he started playing good cop. So I'll be really interested to see if that FBI agent will show up out there and meet with you men face to face like a man would.
Well, I got their cameras still. I said, the ones I took down from the pole. I put out, I've got them here. You can come here, and I will kindly hand them over. I don't have any need for them. And I'm sure they're facial recognition ones. They're very high tech looking things. They look like they're very expensive, and so I got them in a basket right here. And so anytime you'd like them, I'll walk up to the front and hand them to me, but they haven't asked for them back.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing. That was probably my favorite thing that happened all week was spotting that, you folks taking that down. I thought it was awesome. Awesome.
Well, they ran the boom trucks out there yesterday and pulled down the boxes. Because we left the boxes there with the open, just took the cameras out, and so we could see if they put them back in or anything like that. But they ran out there and actually took the whole boxes down. And yeah, that was kind of a fun day, actually.
Yeah, it looked pretty fun. Well, LaVoy, I'm going to let you go. I know you've got a lot to do. You've got those ranchers there that you've just brought in, picked up from Boise, coming in from New Mexico. So I'll go ahead and let you go here. Our best to you and Jeanette, and of course to everyone out there. And on behalf of Revolution Radio, thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you for all that you do. You guys are real heroes and a real support and strength to us. So God bless you for what you do. We appreciate it very much.
Okay, well, liberty and justice for all, LaVoy. Thank you for your time tonight.
All right. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Okay, we're here live on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I think we're broadcasting over at YouTube, doing a live cast. And so my remaining guests right now are Ken Dost and Rene Powers. And these are the two people that probably have dug the deepest into this situation and have some things that they want to share about this. So, Rene, I'm going to get you to hold on for just 1 minute. As Ken, you were pretty well received with that information that you brought down to Harney County, weren't you?
Yes, I was very well received. I met with Hammond, and I met with some very, very wonderful people that I basically educated and made them aware of what's going on as far as the underlying aspects of this. And they caught on to it, and they were very well receiving of it. And I think that this is going to tie in quite nicely at some point in the future to where we can break this wide open. And I connected with them as far as how they're doing this and how the theft of lands are being conducted and how they're doing it through these automated processes and to this false impression of the false definition of securitization. So yes, I was very well received. I was very, very pleased. I was very excited, and I'm very excited to work further with them. Oh, did I get lost? Did I get dropped?
No, Ken, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I thought you there?
Okay. Yeah, I'm here, but I think we've lost Patricia. But what I'd like
no, I put myself on mute while I was doing something. Sorry, guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let me back up just a second. I want to talk about the cameras and what a lot of people don't know, and it's really surprising when you find this out. These counties, municipalities, the boroughs, they third-party contract, all of them together. You have the sheriffs, the utilities, and I found this out because when my property was SWAT teamed, the electric company cut my lines. They usually come in ahead of the SWAT team and cut the lines, and they third-party contract with the sheriffs or the police to do this. Then you also have ties into the city or county. So you have your board of supervisors running the business of the county. And when you realize these are all third-party contractors, these are businesses, these are not government entities. And they all work together in unison to control everything. And those boxes up there, that wasn't just the box sitting up there owned by the utility company. No, that you had a lot of vendors going on behind the scenes. And what makes this important to know, yes, because Ken ties this in. This is how we work together. And I got to give a shout out to Tara, Shelley Johnson, Carol Keene. I'll tell you what, Carol Keene is a computer. And she's been a research partner of mine for a couple of years when we started working into the patents. And Ken's been at it for years. But what's interesting is all of us behind the scenes, our research, no matter what we're doing, there always seems to be a patent that pops up. So the third-party contracts are huge when you realize they're vendors. It's just like you went to the circus and you're throwing the balls at the little, the toys to knock them down, or you're blowing up the balloon through the clown's mouth. It's exactly the same thing. It's third-party vendors. So we have to get control of this.
Yes.
And Ken has a lot of information for that.
You know, a lot of this, and she mentions vendors and contracts, and that's exactly what these are. These are licensing contracts that they have amongst one another, and they're licensing of their trade names, their trademarks, their products and whatnot, and these all tie in together in one. It's not really, people say.
Now, Ken, you and Rene are talking code here, okay? You guys have like a huge foundation in this, and I can't allow this right now. You've got to talk. You've got to talk some basic stuff with us. We'll
here's
you can roll it all out from the beginning, and that'll be great and lay the foundation for us. So
here's the basic simplicity of it.
Okay, good. Pretend I'm in second grade. Go ahead.
What they did is they lured people into this idea of home ownership and ranch ownership or land ownership as property owners. As if this was paradigm, as if it was your parents purchasing of their home and their parents purchasing their home, that it related to a negotiable instrument. I mean, that is a static document that once it's signed, sealed, and delivered, it's done with. It's over with. That's the package. What they've done, though, is they've lured people into these lease agreements purported to be a mortgage loan. So what they did was they gave the people this idea of being a homeowner and a landowner and having a mortgage, but in actuality what they did was they set people up so that they can create extra rights in their property, and that's what they do behind the scenes. They create mineral rights, they create water rights, and if they're already created, they steal those water rights and mineral rights. How do they do that? They do that because they put it out into public bid and into public exchanges so that they can trade it and drive up the value of everything. So what they're doing is this applies to ranchers, to homeowners, to condo owners. What they're doing is they're undermining and creating all these extra rights in people's property that they have no right to do whatsoever. And because it's a lease, they get you're paying interest. They separate the interest and the principal apart, and they take that interest and they invest it in high-yield annuities and insurance policies for themselves when they come back and they default you. So if somebody's interested in a ranch, say for instance, say the federal government or BLM is interested in a ranch because there's high content of minerals there or an easement that they want or water rights that they want, what they'll do is they'll get this rancher into a mortgage, what's believed to be a mortgage, which is actually a lease, and they'll go ahead and undermine all those rights and purchase all those rights behind the rancher's or the homeowner's back, and then they'll default them. And when they default them, of course, what happens? You go into court and you defend it as a foreclosure. You're affirming a debt, and of course, we know the courts are criminal and crooked because they're in on this thing, and they just throw the person off their house or off their land. And so now the person that has, or the person or people or organization or federal government that has been purchasing those rights behind your back, they have what's known as a free asset now. So they just come in, and now they've got all the money that comes in from the insurance policies, all of the fees and credits that have run through as many times as they've sold these rights time and time again. So what they've done in all across the nation, all across the world, is they've created this myth of a mortgage loan that does not exist. What they did, and LaVoy said he said it perfectly. He said what they do is they lease it back to you, and that's exactly what they're doing. They give you this impression that you have ownership of something, but you don't. And then they're turning around and giving it a lease back and leasing it back to you, while at the same time they're undermining it and stealing it away from you. And these are things.
Let me interrupt just a second, Ken, to just make a point here so anybody listening, because we want it to make sense. When you go and you autograph these documents, believing you're buying a home, everyone can get your documents out. Anyone right now. You get your documents out, and on usually the top of the second page, you're going to see that you are seized, that you are giving, swearing that you are seized to be able to encumber the estate and attach it to the property. Now, there's a real key here. They say estate, and then they say property. What you don't realize is that they're not one and the same, but we, not knowing, because that's not, we're buying a home, we believe. So we believe their intentions is what the contract is about. But what they're actually talking about is your living estate. When they talk about you are seized, the only thing you can be seized of on the surface is your living estate. And what is that? That's your signature.
Yes.
That's your life, that's your children, that's anything that estate could have a value when you go into probate.
Right. Exactly.
So what happens here is we sign the dotted line, and right away, as soon as that ink is on that paper, you literally could sit and wait for a check, because that signature right there allows you, because you become the creditor. You're not the debtor. You're the creditor.
Yes. And explain to them why that is. That's because
let
you were
me finish and then take it, Ken. That check that they are taking actually belongs to you, but they bypass you, in essence, stealing, due to the fact that they're not disclosing these things. So when people say, I can't figure out how they're doing all of this. Well, I had 1.63 acres almost stolen from me, from what Ken was talking about, the easements, right? Well, how did they do that? Through the signature on the backside, through identity theft, intellectual property theft, theft of everything you can imagine that you don't even know is going on.
Right,
So
and there's no way that you can. And ignorance is not an excuse. Doesn't fly here, because what they've done is they have completely sealed off all information of any kind of mutual assent to the consumer or to the borrower by withholding what they're really executing, what they're really signing. You know, when you look at these mortgage loan documents, you see the word property. You see the word real property once or twice within the document. All other times, all you see is the general term property. Well, what kind of property is there? There's three different types, and there's real property, there's personal property, and what's the third type? Intellectual property. Now, this is something that a consumer would have no knowledge of whatsoever at all, because this is something these are new business processes that were introduced after 1998, and it admits it within the patents. It talks about this is a new financial product. Well, if you're going to introduce a new financial product where you're going to turn me into a lease, and I don't actually have a mortgage loan, then there's a problem there with mutual assent. And Rene is right. And the reason why we are seized of everything is because it is a lease. We don't have ownership. And the reason why we're the creditor is because it is a lease, and we're not getting anything out of it. We have basically given them all rights to our living estate through our signature, and given them all rights to our real property and any rights and property that they can create thereunder, which is all these intellectual property rights that refer to mineral rights, water rights. I mean, it's the most massive fraud in history. And the beauty of it, though, is that we can prove it. We can lay down the documents to show exactly what they have done and how they have done it. We could show how it ties directly into the county through foreclosure bonds, through insurances, through pension funds. So these are things that, I mean, we can tie this from Judge Nasty all the way up to Wall Street, all the way into the federal government, all the way overseas to China. We can tie all the connections in on exactly what they've done. And they have, so we are, by all accounts, we are wealthy. Each and every one of us is wealthy. The problem is they stole it from us, and they stole it from us through a signature.
And the thing is, fraud does not stand. So it all goes straight back. And so many people have fought. And what we see is, you fight. Well, you don't have to fight. There is no fight here. And the one thing I loved about what Chris Ann says is the Constitution's non-negotiable.
Right. And fraud.
There is no negotiating.
And so what happens?
Correct. And it's contract fraud. That's what all of this comes down to. It's contract. Yeah. Everything Ammon's doing out there, what are they doing? They're going through contracts. They're going through patents. They're going through deeds. They're going through, all of it ties into contracts.
And what's a contract? A contract is supposed to be a static instrument, right? And the Constitution is a contract. It's a static instrument. A mortgage loan should be a static instrument, but it's not.
It's alive.
They didn't just breach the contract. There never was a contract, period. There was a
because it's not executed. It's on. Yeah, it's unexecutory. It only has one signature.
Rene, Ken, we're coming up on the end of the hour here. We've got a little bit more time. But Rene, you said you wanted to talk about something that's going on in your county and what you found in the county charter and what you're doing about it.
Oh, everybody's county, right? Well, because what we're talking about here one thing that we're very clear on as researchers is not just talking about the problem, because we see that happen all over. This has happened, that's happened. I mean, the atrocities that we know just being at the ranch, and then being out here in Oregon and Sugar Pine. When you hear the stories, well, we all have stories. And the one thing that the crooks and the evil people, and like Judge Nasty, they forget, is when you commit crimes against people, they either do one of two things. They either stick their head in the sand and just go with it, or they learn how to fix it and what happened to get them there, to get them so they can get out of it. What you have here, Ken and I, Carol, Marjorie, Liz, Shelley, Tara, what you have here are people who have been harmed previously. We're not victims. We're survivors, but we're also now your warriors out there, because we have to fix this. So how do we do that? Well, what we found is we know that there's accountability, and everybody's out here talking about all the presidents, all of these races. What people need to do is look right in your backyard, right where you are, because your county board of supervisors, now some back east, it's commissioners, there's different words for it, but your county government, your city county governments, those are your key areas. So what happens is, Fritz, I'm going to give a shout out to Fitzpatrick. I love her. She's another one of our warrior women. She and I got talking, and all of it was tied into risk management. My issues all turned back into risk management between the cell tower company and the sheriffs and these debt collectors, mind you, debt collectors. This is all has to do with the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. All of these contracts, because they're selling them off to debt collectors who are cockroaches of the earth. So what happened was, as we said, well, who's accountable?
You're breaking up a little bit, Rene.
Sakes, there's a county charter. Then we have this in Oregon, and I'm watching what Ammon and the crew are doing with these safety committees. And all of a sudden I start thinking, wait a minute, we have missed that one element in this whole country. We've had National Liberty Alliance, everybody's screaming for common law grand juries. And that was the missing element, is those safety committees. And, they started back in 1760s, before the revolution. This is how it all started. It all started with the militias. And just like is happening now, it's if you put these men in attire from the 1700s, that's where we would be again, because that's exactly what they're doing, because the government has gotten out of control. Well, we know they're a corporation, but that's for another day.
Corporation master.
Anyhow,
it's the government.
Yeah. So at the local level, when we went into our county supervisors meetings, and we have complained about the sheriffs committing crimes against the people, evicting people who have already proven that all of their contracts are fraud, then they won't take police reports. They won't take sheriff reports, but they'll show up and they'll kick you out of your house with guns on you. So where is the accountability? Well, we know they're third-party contracted. Well, guess what? You get into your county charters, and one of the first thing it says is that nasty word, for some reason, that Harney County didn't know before the Constitution. Well, that word is one of the first things usually in these charters, that their state constitution will not be violated, and that the people have the final say. And when Fritz told me that, I went, oh, that's it. It's all tying together. This is what happens when you, as a bully, tyrannical bully, continue to hurt people, when they realize, wait a minute, your own charter says that the people have the final say. We bring you our grievances over and over and over again. The sheriffs are doing illegal SWAT teams. They're removing people out of their homes unlawfully. The police are involved, and homes are being sold illegally on the steps of the court, which, by the way, in Orange County, our district attorney's under investigation. The sheriff's department's under investigation for 25 years of secret files kept on inmates. The district attorney's mad because they're looking into him, but that's okay. There's a panel of 5 in Orange County, who most of them are attorneys or previous county members, or, it's the good old boys club, Fox in charge of the hen house. Then you have the board of supervisors, who sit there and look at you and do nothing. We have a DA who's supposed to be able to expunge right out of county record the fraud. But yet when we go in to show them that these county documents are unlawful, they do nothing. And then again, we say, why is that? Well, you know what we found, Patricia, which really set us off in the patent end of risk management. What we found was there's a company that Orange County, Los Angeles, San Diego, and Riverside County own, and it's called Secure. It's all capital S's. It has to do with electronic document recordation.
Like MERS.
Like MERS. Well, MERS is, yes. But this system is what they use throughout the country. Any county can buy into this contract with Orange County, Riverside, San Diego, and Los Angeles. And they, for a minimum of $100,000, it costs to get contract with this system so that the banks, the debt collectors, the title companies, the escrows, the court can all electronically record documents as their clients of the county, their customers, which now we know it's not us, it's not we the people that are the customers. It is the very entities who they've contracted to take care of recording documents that are stealing from us with their help. County charter violation? You betcha. Not only
where is this going to lead?
Where this
I want you to give me the good news about where this is
where this leads
run out
is
of time.
when they violate the county charter, it shuts the county down. And the county's charters say the people have the final say. So what the good news is that's the fact. That's their rules. That's the fact, Jack. You go in front of the county board of supervisors, you literally can say, we are here. We've given you our grievances. We are here to give you notice that we are getting into the books this week or tomorrow, or we're ready now, but we'll proceed when we'll negotiate a time to come in, but we are going to do this. The people right in the charter have the power to audit the county books. And we're not just talking the budget books that are on the surface. We know they double book.
Well, that's pretty big information.
Ken,
it's huge. Ken, you want to comment on this before we wrap up?
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to comment on this. Everything that Renee's talked about, we can prove. We can prove that this through patented processes. We can prove that Goldman Sachs ties directly into the county courthouses, ties into the records, ties into indexing, ties into the IRS, ties into the 1031 exchanges. We can show that Goldman Sachs is canceling the debt and there is no debt. And we could show that the risk management end of this goes right into the county. So everything that Renee is talking about, we can lay down the documents that prove that they're doing this. So that they have no out now. They have no out.
And the CAFRs. Talk about the CAFRs, Steve. Talk about the CAFRs real quick, just as the CAFRs, their retirement funds that are tied into.
Yes, well, yes, everything's tied in. It's profitable for the counties to throw people out of their houses. Why? Because when a home goes into foreclosure, it becomes what they call nationalization, which creates all these bonds, all these foreclosure bonds, all these national bonds from out of the Treasury and the Fed, and also down at the county level. And this is all the annuity monies and the pension funds that release to, and the utilities, and also the power companies and energy companies that release monies to the state, to the counties, to the judges' pension funds, to the county employee pension funds, and it all does this when they kick somebody out of their house and they complete a foreclosure. So we have a whole court system that is corrupt, and we can prove this now through these patents, backed up with the information that Renee has found and the information that Carol has found. I mean, we can tie these guys and nail them to the wall now. We have all the evidence we need. Now all we got to do is bring this stuff forward and start laying it down. And, the counties are going to be held to account. Judge Nasty is going to be held to account. And we could do this all across, in every county across the entire state, entire nation, all 3,400 plus counties, because these are all automated processes that deal with not a contract between you and me, buyer and seller, but between contracts and licensing agreements between corporations. I mean, do you know that the BLM, for God's sakes, is a publicly traded company?
Absolutely.
That's a problem.
They're registered in Puerto Rico too, I think, right?
Yeah, they're sub-corp of the U.S. Inc.
The problem with that is this. What they're doing is they surface to create stocks and bonds that they could publicly sell, but then they go underground into these hidden LLCs where they go into these licensing agreements and these other contracts and these third-party vendor contracts with whom? The counties, the state, utilities, pension funds, you name it. They go into it, and then they come back up again when they want to liquidate the bonds and pays it out. So they're doing this. It's kind of like a dolphin going, coming up and jumping up in the water. They come up public when they need to, and then when they want to hide something, they go underwater and become an LLC, and they hide everything. And this we can show.
And not only can we show it, but the simplicity of this is the county charter. It's violated. When you have every single vendor actually in contrast and in conflict with the people in the county, because when you have a county who is contracting with the very providers that can shut your life off in an instant, they can shut off your electricity, they can shut off your gas, they can throw you in jail with the help of each other. That's RICO. That's conspiring. That Absolutely. Is a monopoly. What we have is a game of monopoly right in our home without even knowing it. Your children.
And what does a patent allow somebody to do? A patent allows somebody to monopolize. And that's what they're doing. They're using the patents to monopolize. And they've got a huge monopoly that is, think of it as one big patent that they monopolized us underneath.
Okay. All right. I just want you guys to get out. Ken, I know you've got a Facebook page that has a lot of information on it. Why don't you tell people how to find it?
You can either find me through my name, Ken Dost, D-O-S-T, or you can go to my Facebook page, which is Mortgage Equals Copyright Derivative, and that's the equal sign, not spelled out, copyright, equal sign, copyright derivative. There's lots of information, lots of diagrams, lots of charts, lots of information. It's a hub of information.
Excellent. Rene?
Yeah, I also have the shows. Carol and I do One Mom on a Borough and Two Moms on a Borough, BOROUGH. On Facebook, you can find the information going to National Homeowners Justice Coalition and Renee Powers, 1E, and my One Mom on a Borough show Facebook page on Renee Powers and One Mom on a Borough. I have many articles I've written on these subjects. We tie everything in through Facebook. In our research, you'll find a lot of what we're doing between all of those that Ken just suggested and I suggested. But the one thing I'd really like to leave us with tonight is the simplicity of this. What Ammon has brought to Oregon, whether people like the way he's done it or not, the one key thing that people haven't mentioned the other night at that meeting, what's the one underlying thing people keep saying? I want the federal government gone. We want the FBI gone. Well, in the county level, if your board of supervisors and your lower government is not doing their job and they're violating the county charter, they can be shut down and lose their pensions. So this is very serious. And all we want to do is say, let's work together. Quit stealing our homes. Quit hurting the people. The Constitution is non-negotiable, and it should not take what we have had to do and what we have had to experience to shut them down, but by their own actions.
Well, I want to know who's going to shut them down? Who's going to be able to accomplish that?
The people have in the county charters. This is what I'm saying. Pull out your county charters. Go get them. You can usually find them online. Read them. It tells you exactly what they can and cannot do. That simply. You can form your own safety committee, just like they've done in Burns, Oregon, or in Harney County, right there. They have their page right online for people to see. It shows you what they're doing and what they're about, because the basic thing is the people get together, you get your committee together. The board of supervisors is supposed to be that safety committee for we the people in our towns. They're supposed to protect us from any tyranny coming down from the state or the federal government.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, now I want to know who. Okay, I see all that, but my question when I get to this point in the conversation is always this: who's going to enforce this. Without a decent sheriff,
well, again,
it's a problem.
Because, well, there's always going to be a problem because, like Judge Nasty, no matter what is lawful or not, they are going to do it. But this is their own rules. This is their own county charter. You have a head of your legal team. You have your county counsel, your lead county counsel. You have your CEO. You have your administrator and your comptrollers. These people are, and any of them that are elected, they have what's called a certificate of liability that they're supposed to provide for liability.
Okay.
Your key here is they steal everything through insurance.
We're out of time, Renee. We're going to have to take this up again. Ken Dost,
Okay.
Dave Powers, thank you so much. I want to give a big
got it.
shout
Thanks,
out
Patricia.
to Har. Thank you so much for the live stream tonight. God bless everybody, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank Hammond. Thank Hammond Bundy.
Thank you.